I'm Shane Hoefer, and this is where I sit down with some of the most interesting individuals that come into my life. I'm Shane Hoefer, and today my guest is Nick Kapande.
Correct.
Nick is a relatively new acquaintance of mine over the past year or so, but Nick's got a fascinating background. Nick is a businessman, entrepreneur, personal coach, martial artist, personal trainer, fitness coach, motivational speaker, and a little bit of everything else.
Wow.
And I wanted to tap into a little bit of Nick's life experience and wisdom on all of those topics today and to see what I could learn from him.
Awesome. Well, it's an honor and a pleasure to be here.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah,
I
not a
really,
problem.
really appreciate it.
Well, we just talked about it, and I said, what the heck, let's do this. Right?
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about your background. How did you become the businessman, gym owner, martial artist, and weird physical feat achiever that you are today?
Well, that's a good question. It all started when I was about 19 years old, and I wanted to get into martial arts, and I had, believe it or not, zero confidence in myself. And so one of the things that I always teach kids today is, you have to start somewhere. So I had literally no confidence, and I wanted to get into martial arts. And when I got into martial arts, I found the right instructor, and it kind of set the platform for my whole life. It really did. And so I went through that. I started in Chicago with a guy named Mack Newton, and I still train with him to this day. We actually have Zoom classes. When you guys are working out with Brian in the next room, I have a Zoom class on Saturday for 2.5 hours with my instructor. He's now 76 years old.
Wow.
Which is pretty cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. So
how many years have you been training with him now then?
39 and a half years.
That's awesome.
Consistently. So a lot of people quit and start, but I never did. I just kept going with them. And the only way I could do it is Zoom now.
Yeah.
So we've been doing Zooms for, like 10 years.
So you said that started at 19, set you on the path. What did that do for you at 19 years old?
Well, I didn't come from the best upbringing because my father and mother were divorced when I was a young kid. And so I never had we all need mentors, and I believe in mentors. I believe in people who coach you and make you and push you and challenge you. So I never really had a mentor because, I didn't grow up that way. I didn't grow up saying, you got to do this and you got to do that, and if you do this, you're going to be successful. I never had that. So to find a man like Mr. Newton and really set the stage for my self-discipline, my commitment, my perseverance, my self-control, and my domitable spirit, that's what I needed at that time in my life because I had no confidence in myself. I couldn't speak in front of a group. I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do when I grew up. And when I got into martial arts, I remember the first day, Shane, and I said this, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
So you knew on the first time?
I knew the first day I trained, I said, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. And all my friends laughed at me. So it's funny. Everybody wants to steal your dream. Don't let them steal your dream because I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
Still doing it. And so, like I said, for 39 and a half years, I have class on Saturday, and I still train with the same guy that yells at me and gives me knuckle push-ups.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And so you said he's 78 now?
He's 76 years old.
76.
He's a 9th degree black belt. He's a conditioning coach. He was a conditioning coach for the Oakland A's, the Dallas Cowboys, the Seattle Mariners, the Arizona Diamondbacks, the Arizona Cardinals. I could go on and on and on. Train Ricky Henderson, the greatest base dealer in the world. Bo Jackson, I have a picture on 30 for 30. Troy Aikman, Barry Bonds, you name it. And so I got exposed to all that kind of training with Mr. Newton in Phoenix. So, so I still train him. He still trains pro athletes, and he still teaches Taekwondo to this day. He's 76.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
So when you started off to do martial arts, did you choose Taekwondo for a reason, or is that the one that was convenient?
Excellent question. I went to 15 martial arts schools, and I never picked an art. I picked an instructor. I only wanted somebody who was going to push me the most to make me the best at what I could be. And I knew if I didn't get somebody who was going to call me out and hold my feet to the fire and hold me accountable, and I would have never been where I'm at today. I wouldn't own that club. There's no way. There's no way I would own the club, done anything if I didn't find this person. So that's why one person can change your life.
That's really cool. I'm kind of envious of that. I've had various mentors throughout my life that have come and gone, and my dad was obviously a huge influence in my life. And then when he got dementia, and he deteriorated so fast, I felt like I got robbed of so much of his wisdom. Had I known that was there, that was on the horizon. But that's really cool that you've had that consistent one mentor throughout your entire life. How have you seen him evolve as he's over these 39 years?
One thing, he's kind of like he's got so much wisdom.
Yeah.
And when I have a problem, which I've had many in my life, I mean everybody has, I would ask him the question. He just gave me the right answer, and it's like perfect. And he's still sharp and articulate. And I just talked to him last Saturday for an hour, and he just gives me the right answer for the situation that I'm in. And I couldn't ask for, like I said, for a better mentor with somebody like that, because he's 76, but he pretty much teaches like he's 25.
So this was a question I had later on down, but I'm going to jump to it because I think it's germane to the situation. What role do you think physical fitness plays in mental fitness? Why do you think don't you think that it's because of his practices or why he's so sharp at his age versus there's so many other people at that age that...
Gone.
Yeah.
Well, he's been in shape his whole life. He's probably been in martial arts since he's been 10. So it's 66 years of martial arts.
Wow.
And how the role of physical fitness plays to mental fitness, I could not go, and I'm sure you agree with this, I could not go a day without training, because I think when we train martial arts, one of the things we say, our first pledge is to train both mind and body through Taekwondo. Because without the strong body, you can't have a strong mind. I really believe that, and I'm sure you do it. And you can overcome adversity. You can rebound back from stress. And so there's so many little things that physical fitness plays, and I think that's why I got attracted to it. I even say to my students all the time, I work out 3 times a day, but the reason I work out 3 times a day is not to be in better shape. It's for this. It's for my head, for my attitude. So I think it's the key piece when we talk about health, mental health. If more people would have did in COVID and trained through COVID, they would not have the outlook. They would have way better outlook than most of these people have nowadays, sitting around for an entire year doing nothing.
Yeah, so I started at your gym and with Brian just before COVID.
Right.
And I had done multiple different fitness things, but nothing that stuck that became a lifestyle. They were always a flash in the pan where I was like, this is not sustainable. This is not sustainable. And when I started on with Brian, the time slots that he had available were the most illogical time slots for someone that's trying to run a business. The middle of Tuesday and the middle of Thursday.
Right, I see you guys coming in all the time.
Yeah.
Susan's got a free reign, though. Right, she's around the corner.
Yeah. Feel free to talk to anyone off camera.
I'm joking.
But that ended up being such a godsend for me during COVID.
Yep.
When everything else was stripped away and we couldn't do anything. What stepping away from all of the work stress, all the negative news, the pandemic stress, and to go and to just channel everything into physical exertion. What that did for my mental stability, the only thing I had ever found that was comparable to that prior was when I would do foreign travel.
Right.
And the reason foreign travel is it made you forget about everything. When you can't speak a language, you don't know how to navigate, how to get around a town, you are in the moment. You are not thinking, you're not telling yourself stories, you're not thinking about problems, you are in the here and the now. That gave me great clarity. So that's why I spent tremendous amounts of time traveling prior to COVID. Obviously, COVID brings it all down, and thank God I just signed up with Brian and started something new. The physical side of things, that ended up just being a godsend for me.
Well, I can tell you that I've had several students in the last year said, if you didn't keep doing those classes, I think I wouldn't have made it. Because they said, you saved my life training every day. Training saved my life. And I believe that, because I've been doing this for, I've been working out for 45 years straight. I wouldn't be the person I am if I didn't work out every day. I think training is way more for your mind. than it is for your body. And your attitude, if you're in sales, if you have a job where you have to go out and you have to do things every single day, you better have a great attitude. And I think a direct correlation between physical fitness and mental fitness, there's no question. If you don't work out, you're not as good as you should be. There's no way.
Yeah, and that's ultimately the kind of thing I want to poke around on today. Obviously you don't achieve the things that you've achieved without having a great mental outlook, and obviously you're all about physical fitness. There's that big sign that's on your website, if you look at it too, that's on the wall.
Attitude is everything.
Attitude is everything.
Yep.
Did you know the attitude was everything when you were 19 and you started, or did you slowly pick that up as you were starting martial arts? When did that click for you?
It started to click. Well, I've always had a pretty good attitude, but I didn't have the skill sets with the attitude, if that makes sense. So
Yeah.
I was like excited, but didn't know why I was excited.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a lot of mistakes when I was selling seminars, and we'll get into that a little bit. I had no confidence in myself, and what gave me the confidence is just everything I did in the martial arts and working out. I just said, you know what? I'm just gonna keep training, keep pushing, keep challenging myself. And I'm going to keep overcoming these obstacles that you have to do as a martial artist, because you have to go to a white, yellow, green, blue, red, black, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th degree. But if I didn't have that overcoming attitude, there's no way I would have had Nick's Pro Fitness, anything that I have right now. So yes, I did not have confidence in myself, and I built the confidence through the training. So just like you, I'm sure you said, man, I feel good. I'm working out every day with Brian. I feel better about myself. And I think if people just worked out, they would feel better about themselves. And what would happen is their confidence level will go through the roof. But they don't, and then their confidence levels go down, especially people in their 50s.
Why do you say that? You say that with a lot of authority, so I know you got something behind that.
Because I have a lot of executives, and what starts to happen in corporate world is they start looking at these guys and they're out of shape, they're overweight, they don't feel good about themselves, and all of a sudden they start attritioning these 50-year-olds out of their jobs because they don't look the part. But if you're 50 years old looking like you're 35, you look like you got a handle on your life. And it looks like when you're out of shape, you lose control. You're losing control of your life because you're not in shape.
So so even if if people aren't consciously doing that, subconsciously, they're reading the situation.
They're discounting people.
Yeah.
They want a young guy now. Well, he's just doing the same job. He's working up towards your vice president job. And I have a guy in my class that said, Nick, I would not have this job if it wasn't for my physical fitness and training with you every day. And he's got a huge high-level job at a company. And he said, if I wasn't in shape, I look at my peers now, and they're totally out of shape because of COVID. And they're totally out of shape because they don't do anything. And their attitude and their dedication and their discipline is gone out the window. Because if you look at somebody and that, well, not really in good shape, well, what do you say to yourself? Well, maybe they're not disciplined. Maybe they really are, but they look like they're not disciplined.
Sure.
They look like they're not focused. They look like they're a little bit lazy because they're out of shape. So
even though we say don't judge a book by its cover, every human does it on a regular basis.
Right, but the beautiful thing is you can turn it around in a snap of a finger. You say, I'm going to get in shape now. And that's what people don't understand. They don't understand that it could happen like that. You can make that conscious decision, and you could do a 180 in 2 seconds and change your life like that.
But I got a question
won't.
for you.
Yeah.
So you see people come in all the time at Nick's. They're signed up for their gym membership. They're excited. Have you figured out a common denominator as to the person that sticks with it, achieves goals, and the person that is a flash in the pan, they're excited, and they fall away?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Leadership. You have Brian. They have me. They have Greg. They have other people there. Most people will not succeed unless they have an instructor. I tell them that all the time. I said, you need to get to a trainer. Well, I just want to play with the weights. I said, then you're going to be playing the rest of your life because you're never going to get anywhere. And I know the people, you can see that writing on the wall. They're never going to get anywhere if they don't have a leader to lead them in the direction that they want. And I don't care how much it costs. It's not a cost, it's an investment in themselves. And they don't do it. And I say to my students right now when they walk in the door and they start training with me, it's not how you start, buddy. It's how you finish. It's not how you start, it's how you finish. How do you want to finish? It's not where you're coming from, it's where you're going. That's what we want. I don't care where you come from. Let's go somewhere that's better than this. Because right now, we need to get better than this. And that's really the issue with a lot of people who sign up. They have no discipline, no direction. They're just going to think they're just going to join a club and magic's going to happen. It doesn't happen.
You're speaking to the first several decades of my life. Like you read a
Yep.
book, you'd read a philosophy, you're like, this makes sense, this is how I can lose weight, how I can put on muscle.
Yeah.
You try it, you don't get the results you want,
Right.
and all you have is a book to reference.
Yep.
And so then you're wondering, am I following the wrong book? Am I doing something wrong in the gym? You don't know. Next thing you know, you switch. Anyway, you flounder. Like, I spent years working out religiously, very disciplined, and I did not get the results that I've gotten with Brian in a year and a half.
Yeah.
And, when I signed up with Brian, it wasn't that I intended to have it be short term, but what I've gotten out of that, like now, I totally see it as an investment. Not just in the physical changes I've seen in my body, but like I said, the mental aspects of what that does for me, and the nuances of having a professional like him or other trainers. I mean, I just speak to him because that's who I've been working with for this past year.
Right.
The results I got after having someone who has poured his life into learning this.
Right.
I couldn't agree more. I've never looked at it that way, but like I never got the results I wanted, and then I actually made the investment. I'm going to pay for Brian on a regular basis, and now it's a foregone conclusion. I don't look at it's just like it's an ongoing line item in my personal budget, and I don't even want to call it an expense because, like you said, because it's an investment. I feel like it makes me better in every way in my life.
No, and like you hit it on the head. And the other thing too is my instructor always used to say, you can read a book on philosophy, become a philosopher. You can read a book on mathematics and be a mathematician. You can read a book on swimming and you're going to drown. And you think about it. People think, oh, I'm just going to read about something and I'm going to do it. No, you're not.
That's a great phrase, yeah.
So you're not. You're not. You can't tell me you're going to get better at this.
Yeah.
I give you a couple of pieces of paper, go, okay, go work out. But if I'm standing over you and I'm going, no, this, I want you to do that, they're going to get better exponentially. But what people are afraid of, a lot of people are afraid of, and I was too. I was telling my students this morning, I said, every Saturday, I am scared to death to train with my instructor. I am scared.
After all these years.
Anxiety, because he's going to say, Nick, that's terrible. Nick, this is this. No, you can't do this. No, give me knuckle push-ups because you're making mistakes. And after 39 years, I'm apprehensive to train with him. But in the flip side of it, it's thrilling because you're always being challenged. You have to find somebody in your life that challenges you in your life. If you don't, you're gonna be mediocre.
I've actually just stumbled on that principle when it came to business. We came to a place where we had plateaued and things were running pretty smoothly.
Yeah, that's what happens.
And I realized, like, I thought I was getting burnt out. I was getting bored. And what I needed was, like, basically the world that we had created, the business we had created, we had become easy. And so I either needed to go and do a whole new challenge, or I needed to say, we got to take this to another level.
That's right.
Because as humans, we think we want it easy, but we actually want a challenge and we want to succeed. And our fear is that the self-doubt creeps in of like, well, what if I don't?
Right, and you know what a lot of us do, including me, and I've been humbled so many times, especially with my business, especially with the COVID, when that happened, man, we had to think of all kinds of pivoting ideas. And you know what happens to all of us, including me, and including training? You start to fall in love with your success, and all of a sudden you don't have it. And the other thing that happens is, the opposite of a commitment to excellence, as Brian Tracy says, is an acceptance of mediocrity.
Yeah. And
we become mediocre all of a sudden. You're like, oh my God, I'm not doing what I used to do, and I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing that, and I'm not doing this. And and you have to, one of the things that one of my mentors, John Palumbi, his sales mentor, he used to say, you got to reinvent yourself every 6 months. You got to reinvent yourself every 6 months, Nick. You got to rethink your whole life every 6 months. And I do it every week. I go, how did this week go? How did this day go? How did this, why? I didn't like the way the classes ran last week.
Do I like the trajectory I'm on?
Right.
Yeah.
So I change everything up. I almost flipped the whole program. So you're right. I mean, you could sit there and you think, we're riding high and everybody's doing great, but are you really, really your best?
Absolutely, because we always are capable of better. But once we achieve something amazing, we feel like if we try to strive again, we may not succeed, and
Right.
we will. And a lot of times we won't. We
Right.
will fall on our face.
Right.
I mean, that's actually part of the formula of success is falling on your face a handful of
Fall on your
times.
face, man.
But gosh, if we try to ride that success forever,
Right.
it just fades. Beauty fades, and it's actually, I see it's a formula for unhappiness, and they realize that's one of my biggest epiphanies over the past year is like I can never settle. Like I can enjoy the mountaintop briefly, but then I got to find the next highest peak and figure out how to get there. Otherwise, I think it's just a formula for just being unhappy in life.
Well, my instructor, and I haven't told many people about this. October, my instructor's very. He's so intense. That's why I say, I don't know if I'm gonna, get kicked out or what. So, I'm working out 7 days a week. So I went to Oregon. I came back and he says, "I don't think you're serious about Taekwondo." He says, "You're suspended.
Wow.
I'm kicking you out." He goes, "I want you to think about if you really want to do Taekwondo. So you're now fully suspended." So I'm sitting there, and my students are laughing because they think it's pretty funny. I said, "No, it's not that funny, but we can laugh about it." So here I am, a 6-degree black belt, doing it with him for 39 years. He goes, "I think you're too much of a businessman. I think you're not serious about martial arts." He goes, "So we'll revisit this in December." So he kicked me out for a month and a half, and I didn't train with him.
Wow.
And he's like, "Are you serious? You want to get back in?" I said, "Yes, sir. I definitely want to."
So what epiphanies did you have in that month and a half? What did that do for you? Because you obviously, the way you said that, it makes me think, correct me if I'm wrong, you disagreed with him. You thought you were still committed.
Yeah, I thought I was committed, and we all think we're committed. We all think we're committed to something until somebody shows you something that you need to work on.
So in hindsight, you agreed with his call.
I partially agreed. I say 50-50 because I was training, I was working out, but I also was semi-distracted with the move, my move situation. Yep. And I looked at it and I go, "All right, you want to challenge me? I'm up for the challenge. You want to kick me out for a month and a half? I'll show you who I am." And sometimes a little bit of anger is a good motivation. So I waited and I trained and I trained and I trained, and he let me back in, and now I'm back. But sometimes you have to have a wake-up call.
Yep.
You have to have a wake-up call. My mother passed away 4 years ago, and I know your father, and we get wake-up calls in life, and all of a sudden it changes in a different direction. You go, "All right, now I guess this is a reason. This happened in my life for a reason, and now I have to shift gears and do something else." And that's what he made me do. It made me just want to train harder and be better.
So during that 6 weeks, were you training harder than you had trained in a long time to try to? How do you earn your way back in that situation with a mentor like that? Was it a physical demonstration or a mental demonstration?
Well, I think he wanted me to. I think he wanted me to prove to him that I really wanted to be there.
How did you have to prove that to him?
Well, I communicated with him while I was gone for the 6 weeks. He didn't just not let me talk.
Okay, didn't sever communication.
He didn't sever. He just call me during the week, and we talked, and we talked nothing about me getting back into class, nothing like that. But most people don't know this, but my dialogue with my instructor is yes sir, no sir, thank you sir. I never called him by his first name in 39 years, because you lose the respect of your instructor if you start. You start being. He never wanted me to be his friend. All I was is his student, and the instructor-student relationship would be lost, and the way I looked at it would be lost. We're hanging out, drinking beers, doing all that, which we don't do, and so it was a very student-instructor relationship, and so I respected what he did. Did I agree with everything? No, but did I agree with some things? Yes, and maybe it made me look at my life a little bit different in how I had the relationship with him and how I respected him in Taekwondo or whatever as my mentor. So yes, I did learn a lot of things, and I learned about being humble. Like, okay, it could happen. Everything's not everything. Like he says, nothing is forever, and life is a test. Did you pass or did you fail? And you can use that every day. Hey, today, how did I do? Did I pass? Did I fail? Right? Did I pass? Did I fail? And I look at that every day. How did I do today? Nah, I didn't like that. That was a 7 instead of a 10. That makes sense?
Yeah. Hold yourself to your highest standard.
To hold yourself to the highest standard that you could possibly hold you to. So I just wrote it out, and they let me back in. Thank goodness.
So I'm curious, do you then model that with your own students? Do you try to draw? I know you don't make people call you instructor Nick or anything like that.
They say yes sir, some of them, and some don't. It just depends. But
So
all the Taekwondo students have to say yes or no sir because they respect. They're not respecting me; they're respecting the rank. So I earned a rank of 6th degree black belt or 6th dan black belt, but they're not really. I said I need you to respect this rank. That's why you say sir, because all the lineage of all martial artists over the years earn that rank. So you're respecting the rank. So one day, if you're at that rank, that's why they have to say yes, sir. Now my conditioning students don't have to do. They can call me Nick or whatever, but they still have to respect me and my class. Otherwise, they don't train there anymore.
So you apply it in your life where it's appropriate. And
Exactly.
Got it.
Exactly.
Got it.
So I'm still there.
All right. So while we're on this topic, before we switch it, I am curious about the way you've done some sales and some stuff like that, and obviously this is kind of a business podcast. So I want to touch on that, but I want to touch a little bit more on mental toughness. And if you search your name, one of the first things that comes up is the 9 News article when you did 4,400 sit-ups for your 44th birthday. And when I was, and I've seen the article in the gym, and it made me think of David Goggins, who's big on social media right now, the ex-Navy SEAL who just does crazy feats of physical impossibility. And that's one of the areas that is the toughest for me. I'm mentally tough in a lot of areas. Man, when my body starts hurting, my mental toughness dwindles real fast.
Right.
How the hell do you do 4,400 sit-ups? How do you get that voice to shut up? How does David Goggins run mile after mile for 48 hours? I've never had somebody that has achieved that kind of stuff sitting across from me. What's the trick, man?
Well, here's the trick. And I don't know if there's a trick. Competence equals confidence. Competence equals confidence. So what I mean by that, so my 54th birthday, I did 5,400 sit-ups in a row. It was 44 was the warm-up. And now I'm 58. Going to be 59 next month. And I was in high school, and I won the physical fitness award from my high school. And I did 35 pull-ups in a row, 65 dips in a row, 52 clap push-ups in a row. I did 142 sit-ups in 2 minutes, and I jump rope 48 minutes and 43 seconds without missing once.
Holy cow.
So I had a bet with a guy. I was working at a gas station. This is like going way back. I was 18, and he goes, I bet you can't do 1,000 sit-ups in a row. I said, I'll bet you $20 I can do it. So I already knew I could do a lot of sit-ups. so we're sitting at a gas station at 5 in the morning, and I'm on the floor of this gas station with a pad underneath my body, and I get to 600, and I start going and I finished 1,000. So I always had a belief I could do stuff, and so the 44 sit-up was kind of cool. Well, 40th birthday, I did 1,000 sit-ups and 1,000 push-ups in less than an hour. So full body push-ups, and I held it. I didn't do them all like I hold it, and I kept doing 20 more, 30 more, 20 more, but I never dropped my knees on the floor. And then right away, I did 1,000 sit-ups. So it took me 58 minutes to do both. 4th birthday was kind of like, I never really had a goal to do 4,400, but what I did is some lady, remember, Campfire Grill.
Yep.
Well, that used to be what? The Kind Soup.
The Kind Soup, yep.
So she was training with me, the wife, 30 minutes, okay, thanks. His wife was training me, I can't remember his name, it's off the top of my head, and he had a massive stroke at 30-something years old, 40 years old.
I remember that, yeah.
And they were hard up for money. They were freaking out about
I miss the
hospital
Kind
bills.
Soup. I think you can get it somewhere now.
Yeah, I know, you can.
You can't just walk in there and get it anymore.
Yeah, I know. But you can find it at stores. They have it at a store.
Yeah.
So anyways, great family, nicest people in the world, and she still go, oh my God. We don't know what we're going to do to pay our bills. And so Heather, my wife, said, why don't we do a fundraiser? So Nick was turning 44, so that's how it all started, with the sit-ups. So
That's
what we
right.
did is I did the 4,400 sit-ups, and people pledged either a penny, whatever, $1, and we raised a whole bunch of money, And so I did 4,400 sit-ups in 3 hours and 20 minutes straight. Never even got up to go to the bathroom, just did the sit-ups. And then the news came in and they interviewed me and all that. But really what it was for a charity. So I started doing these sit-ups. And then I think at 48, I did 4,800. 50, I did 5,000 sit-ups at 50. But the biggest one was when the 54, when this kid that trained at the studio, Tommy Babb, really nice kid, family, great family. They went to Hawaii, and their kid turned around just to say something, and a wave hit him, and it hit his head on the rock, and he was completely paralyzed.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, just devastating to the family. I mean, I would not wish that on anybody. And then we came up with an idea to raise. They needed money, and we came up with an idea to raise money for the Babb family. So I said, I'll do the 5,400 sit-ups. People were donating $1 a sit-up. So that's kind of how I get into the sit-ups. I didn't really want to do.
At some point, like, you got to be like, this is just painful, though.
Well, I had picked songs, and I did "I Had a Tiger" over and over again.
Okay.
"I Had a Tiger" was my song, and I did "I Had a Tiger." They played "I Had a Tiger," "I Had a Tiger," and I just kept my focus. And to answer your question, I kind of diversed. It went somewhere different direction. But what I thought about is just breathe one sit-up at a time. Focus. And I never thought about how much pain I was in. I just kept doing the sit-ups till I was done. And I had a lady that was in my class. She's still in my class. She's a pilot, so she's anal. So she wrote every sit-up down and marked every 100. And then we always did an extra 10. Why? Because I didn't want somebody to tell me I did 54, 390. Right? We needed 5,400. So we always did 10 more. And then all I thought about is, okay, got another 100. Everybody can do another 10. That's what I always think. You can always do another 10. Just like in the gym, do another 10. So we always think, let's do another 10. So that's how I got through the 5,400. That's how I did it. Now, to add to that, even yesterday, this is what I said yesterday. One of my students is making faces, I can't do that. All right, so there's a big dude too. I'm not going to name his name. But he's a big guy. He's like, I go, get your hands up on the back. What are you doing? And he's like, here's what I said to him. One face. You have one face when you train. I said, you ever see me come in here? I've already done 4 classes. I said, you ever see me work out? And I have different faces, like I'm straining. He said, you never see me strain. You never see me change my face. I said, you need to have one face when you're training. I don't care how much you're hurting. Just like business. You may be completely broke, but you go in like nothing's bothering you.
Yeah.
Right? As my friend John Palumbi said, you leave your garbage on the side of the road because it stinks and nobody wants your bad attitude, so do not bring your negativity into my class. So your face is one. So I said, I worked out this morning. I worked out tonight. Do you see any change in my face? Do my legs hurt? Yes. Does my body hurt? Yes. Am I tired? Yes, but you don't see it. You don't see it. So I have one face. That's what my instructor taught me. One face, not two face, Nick.
So I was just going to ask, do you think that the discipline of martial arts has helped you maintain that discipline in these other areas of physical ability?
Excellent question. Here's what my instructor said to me. And I always kind of revert back to him because he's one of my mentors. He says, Nick, I was always a black belt on the floor, but I wasn't a black belt off the floor.
Mm-hmm.
He said, you need to be a black belt on and off the floor. Now, I know we laugh. Sometimes people laugh at me. I'm taking towels. I'm throwing them in the washer. I'm running up and down the stairs at the gym. But you know what? I need to be a black belt on and off the floor. I just can't be a black belt off the floor or on the floor. I'm great on the floor, but look at my life. My life's in shambles off the floor.
And ultimately, like, you see that in pro athletes all the time, and you lose disrespect for that individual. It doesn't matter what he's doing on the field. You can still have respect for that, but if you find out that his personal life is just a shit show.
Right. It's a joke.
Yeah.
Right. And then, like I said to my students yesterday, I lead by example. You lead by example, and people will follow your example. And one of the things I said to Jackie, one of my black belts, she's going to be a doctor. She's way smarter than me. Has way more, amazing life. And I said, Jackie, do you remember when I sparred everybody in class? I line them up and spar everybody from white to black. I said, what I wanted to demonstrate to you is I am the leader, I run the show, I teach the class, I do the class. Just like conditioning to this day, I run the class. Not only do I teach the class, I do the class.
Yeah.
I show you the push-up. I'll do more kickbacks. Show you the frog leaps. I'll do the frog leaps. And I think, and I think you are only respected by what you do, not what you say. I'm not sure you agree with that too. I mean,
Absolutely.
you started in this company. I'm sure you were a sales guy. You did it all. You walked up the ranks.
My first job was the janitor. I
Yeah.
cleaned on the weekends when
That's
I was
right.
12 years old. And so I literally started at the most entry-level job here,
Yep.
and I've done every single thing
That's
that
right.
there is to do
And that's
here.
why everybody respects you. They will not respect you if you just took the leadership role.
Yeah,
You know, that's why there's a white belt in Taekwondo.
right.
And when I got my 4th degree, which is interesting, I didn't own the gym at the time. And I was an employee at Evergreen Fitness and Tennis Center. This was 2000. I was awarded my 4th degree. Mr. Newton came in and awarded my 4th degree. He says, Nick started at the back of the line. He moved through the front of the line. And now he's the only one in front of the line. He says, and this is a great quote that he says, you get in line, you stay in line. And then when you stay in line, you don't have to go back at the end of the line. Because if you stay in line, you'll be in the front of the line all the time. You never get out of line. Otherwise, where do you go?
Go to the back.
Back of the line, right? You get in line, you stay in line, otherwise you go to the back of the line. Don't get in the back of the line, right? And never give it back. Never give it back.
So that's a good time to segue into business. When did you take over Nick's, and how did you get into business, and how did you become the businessman that you are today?
Okay, that's a good question. So, this is for young kids. When I was 18 years old, 19 years old, 20 years old, 21 years old, I had a terrible time speaking in front of a group. I had my major fear is, let's go outside and fight. Okay, I'm in. You want to fight me? I'll fight you, right? You want me to do a speech in front of 2 people? Forget it, man. I'm done. I had so much anxiety, and so I had a fear of public speaking. I had a severe fear of public speaking, so I got to do a business that was the wrong business for being a public speaker, because I had to public speak all the time. So I was 24, 25 years old, and my friend invited me to a Brian Tracy workshop. I don't know if you know who Brian Tracy is.
I know the name, but I'm not real familiar with him.
I'll bring you up to speed. So Brian Tracy's written 75 books. He has written the #1 book called it's called The Psychology of Achievement, The Psychology of Selling. Now, Nightingale Conant was a big company at the time.
I know Nightingale Conant,
So
yeah.
Nightingale Conant, Brian Tracy is the #1 top producing speaker
Probably where I know the name
in
from.
the world. And him and Tony Robbins. But Brian has more content per minute than Tony Robbins. So Brian Tracy was, his Psychology of Selling program was the #1 program at Nightingale Conant in the history of Nightingale Conant. And then the Psychology of Achievement, and then he has Psychology of Success. Now he's written 60, 75 books, 101 ways for business success. Eat the Frog was one of his books, but there's many, many books. The Psychology of Achievement, Psychology of Success, you name it, he's written it. So I had an opportunity to go to a Brian Tracy workshop when I was 24. And I went to the Psychology of Selling. I loved it. I was like, man, I don't know how to sell nothing. This is great. This is great just for basic life.
Yeah.
And then I went to a Psychology of Achievement seminar for 2 days. And
Mid-20s again?
Mid-20s, same thing, just like a week later.
Okay.
2 days in a chair, in middle chairs. And I said, I think I can do anything I want with this information. It was like the key to unlocking the door. It was called the Psychology of Achievement, and what it does is it shows you how to achieve in your life. And I was so blown away that this was the information I needed to be successful. I flew to Toronto, met Brian Tracy, and asked him for a job. And I got into the seminar business. I got in the personal development and sales training business at 24.
I was wondering, I have heard that you have been on stages speaking in front of
Yes,
large crowds,
yes.
selling in that environment. I'm like, Nick, black belt Nick. And so I had to hear the story of how that occurred.
Well, that's how it happened. So I asked him for a job, and I remember some of the first. So I went to meet this guy, and I met Brian Tracy, and I was blown away. It's like I met the Messiah, and like, man, I wish I could. I hope I can be good enough to sell this. So I was selling sales training and motivational training, video-based workshops, and I was awful. I was terrible. I couldn't speak in front of a group. I remember one. This is the one who changed my life. I went to this big company. It was a restaurant supply company, And my friend Mike made me do the speech, and I totally sucked, and we lost the deal. Lost the deal. I was so bad, so nervous, in a suit, couldn't talk, couldn't speak, and I go, that's it. It's kind of like you got punched in the face 10 times. It's like, one of my mentors, Trevor Whitman, was he's a mixed martial art coach. You guys ever heard of Justin Gagey and people like that? I don't know if you guys follow. Well, great. The world champion fighter girl is his fighter. Well, anyways, he goes, nobody. I just given you something he said. He goes, nobody ever learns anything from winning every fight. It's when they lose one. So when I lost that deal, I said, I got to get better at speaking. So I joined Toastmasters, I joined Gabriel Richard, I joined every single thing I could be a speaker at. But what really was a turning point is I really never believed in myself.
It's that same problem. Go back to 19 years old. Just kind of rearing its
I
head
didn't
again.
believe him. I still doing Taekwondo. I'm winning tournaments and things like that. But I still didn't believe in myself in my business and my selling skills. So one day we were promoting Brian Tracy Live in Chicago, and I was teaching Taekwondo at 2 rec centers. I was teaching at Hoffman Estates Park District, Elko Park, more than that, and Des Plaines. And so my friend Steve Huff, he was a promoter for Tony Robbins. So he moved from Brian Tracy, from Tony Robbins to Brian Tracy, and he was my leader, my team leader. He goes, can I go see you do Taekwondo, teach a class? And I said, sure.
And he had known you had been struggling.
Yes.
Yeah.
Watching me sweat, watching me, barely make it through a presentation. And he watched me teach Taekwondo, and I had no problem. He goes, man, you're charismatic. You're inspiring. I said, really? Me? He goes, no. He goes, no, really, Nick, you're good. I said, really? I said, I don't believe that. And then so little by little I got better and better, but I still wasn't there. So I did Brian Tracy for a while. I was actually top producer for, I have no idea how I did it because I was terrible speaking in front of groups. I really, for literally a year and a half, I didn't feel good about getting in front of a group. And then one day, I was in Sacramento, California, and I was in a car dealership. And I was in a rough-looking dudes that sold cars. And this guy that looked like a hitman from the mafia, if you go in my room, and you look at all my pictures on the wall in the Taekwondo room, the conditioning room, there's a guy with a suit on. His name's John Palumbi. And he looks at me and he goes, after the interview, he goes, I like you, kid. You're good. You got potential. I think I can help you.
How do you feel like it went at this point?
I think it sucked.
Okay.
I think I was okay. I was didn't do a good job. I knew I didn't. I thought, I was still nervous, and this is like a year and a half. I'm still nervous doing all these presentations. I'm nervous. And he goes, you got potential. I said, really? I said, okay. And he goes, can I call you in about a month and a half? And I go, yeah. He goes, let me ask you a question. He says, why didn't you ask for the check? I said, excuse me? He goes, no, you didn't ask for the check. Why didn't you ask for the check? He goes, then I finally asked for a check. He gave it to me. Well, a year and a half later, 2 months later, he writes me a note and he goes, hey, it was great meeting you. I'm gonna give you a call. Okay. So 2 months later, he gives me a call. He goes, want to work for me? I said, John, I'm still working for Brian Tracy. I really like it. And then 6 months later, I decided I don't want to work with Brian Tracy anymore. I'm burnt out of this other guy that I was training. It wasn't Brian.
That opportunity just had run its course.
Yeah, his run his course. It was terrible. The guy I was working with was having problems mentally, so I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
So John hooks me at the right time. He goes, I'm going to have you work for me. Now, John was the world's greatest car salesman. He sold more cars than anybody in the world. And he was the best manager, leader that I've ever met in my life. He taught car dealerships how to manage, and he taught general managers, sales managers, salespeople how to be better and effective at leadership, management, and sales. So I was going out selling John Palumbi seminars. Well, our first seminar, we went to Seattle, and guess what happened? Another guy was there just before us. It's like somebody came in here and bought wood, right? And another guy goes, well, we ought to sell you some more wood. We had plenty of wood. We don't want any more wood. So I was there, and we lost $5,000 in the first seminar. I felt terrible. Because here I'm supposed to be this big seminar guy.
Late 20s, early 30s. How old are you now?
24, 26.
Okay, so just a couple years
27,
later.
yeah, 27.
Right. Got it.
I was awful. And the next seminar, next seminar we go into, I had this big deal, and I made a couple of mistakes, and I mentioned somebody's name I shouldn't have mentioned, and I had this big deal laying on the table, and he says, we're not doing any business with John Palumbi International. It wasn't his fault, it was mine. John calls me up, he goes, you're fired. So I'm in an executive suite in Portland, Oregon, we're doing business, he goes, you're fired. And I got these two idiots with me that I hired, my buddies, and they're like, oh, I'm tired, I'm sleeping. And I'm like, oh man, I got no job. I'm 27 years old, 26 years old. I have no job. I have no money. I'm barely paying my car payment. And he goes, yeah, you're fired. And so I'm sitting in a hotel or in an apartment going, oh man, what am I going to do now? I have nothing. I got nothing. I got nothing in life.
Necessity is the mother of all invention.
And all of a sudden he calls me back an hour later.
Okay.
And he says, he's an Italian from New York. He goes, hey Nick, I want to apologize. He goes, you ready to go to Palumbi boot camp? I said, John, I'll do anything to be successful. You tell me what to do, I'll do it. I'll go to the bathroom at a certain time, right? So he calls me back and he goes, we're going to Palumbi boot camp. So for every night before every deal that I went out and did a presentation for, he would call me up and we debrief like the military. What did you do? How did you do? How many sales did you make? What'd you tickets? So I goes, yeah, I just sold 6 tickets at this car dealership, John, it's great. He goes, did you get the check? I go, no. He goes, hangs the phone, he goes, go get that check right now, go! And I'm like, oh my God. Like, so I had to go up to the guy and go, hey man, John's mad at me, I gotta get this check. And if I don't get this check, just from one professional to another, he goes, I'm gonna get fired, or whatever I said, I can't remember. But anyways, 1 year later, I turned into a trained assassin. Nobody could tell me no, or I couldn't get a check from somebody. And I remember the best line I had. He goes, well, you know, I goes, look, you got 10 people. We're all set. He goes, it's $350 times 10 is $3,500. I said, you make the check payable to auto information 2000. He goes, when do you need the check? I go, I'm here. So my confidence went to 0 to 100 with another mentor. This guy, there's another man that changed my life and was my mentor. If I didn't meet him, I wouldn't have Nick's Pro Fitness at all. So then I went on from that. I went back to a promoter that promoted Brian Tracy and a Peak Performers Network that promoted Tony Robbins, Pat Riley, Lou Holtz. I mean, all these successful speakers. So I would go into a city and promote, and we'd have a network every month. Every month we'd have speakers that talked on business development, customer service, sales, motivation. I had Tom Peters in Search of Excellence. That's the kind of speakers we had in our lineups.
Yeah.
So I would go into a city and sell seats for the network. So I went from doing that, and I was top producer for 9 years, and I broke every single record in the country. And
So back in that era, how did you knocking on doors to sell seats for that stuff?
Knocking on doors, get out of here, I don't want you.
Just going to businesses, seem like if they want to send their...
Hey, I'm Nick Kapande. Hi, I'm Nick Kapande. Sean, nice to meet you. Can I get a few minutes of your time? I want to show you what we're doing.
Anybody and everybody was a potential client.
That's exactly right. So I went into everybody from a car dealership to IBM, and I sold seats. And I remember, like I said, the switch flip when I met John, and I had no problem with confidence ever again, because you know why? I had skills. He taught me skills. And when I had skills, I felt confident. I never had a problem. I went in, I could sell anything, and I never walked out without a check. I never walked out. And if I didn't have a check, I had a time, date, place, and a reason to get a check. And I would be working out at 12 o'clock in the afternoon because I had all my checks collected, while all my other guys were frantically running around the country trying to get their checks. So that was a turning point in my life. And then when I met John, he made me read books. He bought me my first pair of brand new shoes. He showed me how to buy a suit. And I was like a dumb kid at 27. I didn't know what I was doing. So that was the turning point of my career in sales. So when I went to Peak Performers, I became top producer in 91, 92, 93, 94. Every seminar, I was top producer.
That's fascinating to me, because I never would have guessed you had that in your background just from interacting with you at the gym. Like, you just don't know that version of Nick is inside there.
Well, you know, I used to teach sales training classes at the club.
Really?
And I stopped doing it just because of COVID and, I used to do sales training, mindset training, and I used to have free seminars. Everybody can come, goal setting, once a year goal setting. But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for him teaching me sales skills and leadership skills, I wouldn't be like that's just, think about it this way. You have your motivational skills, you have your discipline, you have your dedication. But if you don't have your core skills that you need to run a business, you're over.
Yeah.
And that's what he taught me. And so I was lucky enough to have that guy in my corner. And when I went to Peak Performers, went on the free trips because you were top producer. And when I mean top producer, I was most of the time twice as good as the next guy in the city. Wow. Or the other guys. And only because I wasn't nothing special, I just found the right guy to teach me.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about, now I've been fortunate, I learned a lot from my dad here, and I've had other mentors as well. Nothing to the degree that you're describing here. And I listen with a little bit of envy. Wow. And so I think someone else is probably listening and being like, man, how do I get a mentor like that? Someone's out there and they're trying to figure out, I know I need something. I need some juice. I need something in my life to get better. I've heard the old cliche of when a student is ready, a teacher will appear. And I think there's a lot of truth to that. Right. Because once you start looking, you'll be like, I could learn from this guy, so I'm going to do that. That's kind of the spirit of this podcast. Mm-hmm. But if someone's listening out there and they're trying to figure out, man, where's my mentor? What would you tell that person?
I'll tell them this. A great leader is an in-depth and astute follower first. You have to be a great follower. You can't be full of yourself or full of your ideas. One of the things, Brian and I talk all the time, you're Brian, and he's just, him and I just bounce ideas off each other. And when the COVID hit, man, we were locking arms, and it was tight. And one of the things that I believe in is I've been loyal to my instructor since day one. I wish John died. John died in 2003, and I wish he was still John Palumbi.
Oh, that John Palumbi. Okay.
I see on the black
Got it.
And one of the things he was famous for was he sold 13,000 cars, but how he did it is this. He would go in and teach the sales training. He'd teach the managers. He'd teach the general managers leadership, sales training, all this stuff. And then he'd teach the salespeople sales training. And then on Saturday morning, guess who was on the front line taking the worst deal you could? John, and selling it. So he led by example. That's what I loved about John. But I think I attracted myself to people who could push me, who could challenge me. I didn't want to be people like, oh, you're good. No, I want somebody to tell me I'm not good, and how am I going to get better? And I think with younger people out there, you got to find a great mentor that's going to challenge you and push you. If you don't find somebody like that, you're just wasting your time.
So although you were not a very confident person, you were not afraid, or maybe you were afraid, but you faced it anyway, of having your faults pointed out. And you were looking for that. You're like, hey, I know I'm not perfect.
I was looking for people who were going to make me better, and I didn't care what they told me. I didn't care, like Mr. Newton told me I remember this just a couple years ago. He goes, Nick, you're just a businessman. He goes, you're a businessman. You're not martial arts, you're a businessman. He called me out. He goes, well, you need to get more serious about your training. Most people take that like, oh my God, or, Nick, you're terrible. I've heard he's called me terrible before. Nick, you're not even doing what you're supposed to be doing. This is terrible. And so I guess I found people who were really going to call me on the carpet and really show me my weaknesses or my limiting steps. And I needed people like that in my life because I was never going to get better if I didn't have those people in my life.
I think humility is a big thing. Absolutely. Humility is a big thing. What we're talking about is, do you have a humility in there of just being like, I'm willing to acknowledge I suck in certain areas. And until I acknowledge that, I can't get better.
Exactly. And I think that's what these guys pointed out to me. Like you're not as good as you think you are, and you're not that good at all anyways, and you really need a lot of work. But if I didn't have the humility to, that's one of the things in Taekwondo is humility, being humble, because a white belt means pure mind knows nothing.
Okay.
And a black belt means the master of all the colors of the universe, which is the combination of all the colors, but you're really only a black belt, which is just a novice. And if you have that mindset all the time, like you think you act like a you act like a white belt, but you walk like a black belt. Does that make sense? So in other words, you're open-minded. You're never looking at like that's stupid or whatever. You're always open-minded, but you need to have that mindset of a black belt, but you need to think like a white belt.
Kind of like I've heard people say, it's like once you get into your 40s, that's the beginning of wisdom because you actually start to realize that you know nothing.
Nothing. I know nothing. That's what I told my instructor. I mean, you just taught me. I know nothing. He said, Nick, you don't know nothing. I said, yes, sir, I don't know nothing.
And that's the very reason I love having these conversations. It's just
Yeah.
like, it's a never-ending stream of like, man, I've never thought of that. I've never heard that. It's always just constant food for thought.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we all walk those paths too. I'm nothing special. I just have, try to attract people. I think this is the law of attraction. You attract people in your life that you harmonize with your dominant thoughts. And I was always seeking, I want to be successful. I want to be a winner. I want something. I don't want to be a failure.
Yeah.
And how do I not fail, but find the right people to give me the resources and the skill sets to not fail? And so I try to surround myself with winners and people who would say, no, come on, man, you give me a break.
That was one of my early just ideas,
Yeah.
something to ask you.
Yeah.
And you just brought it up. And for some reason, I feel like you're going to have an interesting answer to this. How do you define success? What's success to you?
Living your life your own way. And not, you're going to think I'm crazy.
No.
I had different, when you grow up, and you probably had the same thing. I wanted the nice car, I wanted this house, I wanted this. Now that I'm not my age. I want to wake up in the morning and read a book. I want nothing. I want less is more for me. We in martial arts and self-defense, the less you pull, and the less you turn your wrist, and the less you do this is more. You'll get more out of it. So less is more. Try easy. And one of the things that I've discovered in my life is I don't need a lot to live, and I don't need a lot to be happy. No, I don't need I don't need much. I want a great workout. I want to have a great attitude. I want to be grateful for my kids and my family. I want to make some money. But other than that, I don't need clothes, fancy stuff, nothing. Less is more. I've actually shedded most of the stuff in my life. And the only thing I work on is myself and help people see that they don't need a lot to be happy. And most people, I got to have all this stuff. But no, you don't. Why can't you just work out, right? Why don't you just take shape? Why don't you get your attitude right? Right?
Absolutely.
Get your attitude right. Be happy just being where you're at, not where you're going, where you're at. So that's my philosophy now. I just get outside and I read a book, I write on my journal, and I go to class. I feel great, I train, I work out, I feel awesome. I don't need nothing else.
I think it's actually a beautiful place to wrap up. Like, what more is there to add than the definition of success?
Thanks,
man, I have really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
Getting to know you a little
Thank
bit,
you.
and there's, I knew there was a story there. Much
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
for taking the time.
And thank you for having me, and hope that was okay, and you got a couple of,
Oh,
I had a little
it's
fun today.
awesome.
Yeah.
That was awesome.